You walk into the conference room and the air immediately thins. You haven't spoken a single word. You haven't taken up any excess physical space. But there is a look, a very specific, heavily calibrated, icy glare that hits you before you even pull out your chair. If you have spent the last few months scanning your own behavior, replaying every minor interaction to figure out what you did to deserve this ambient hostility, stop. What the pattern suggests is, you didn't do anything. You are just existing, but your existence threatens something they desperately want to keep hidden. We often treat workplace hostility as a purely emotional problem, a minor inconvenience of office politics. But the physical toll is measurable and severe. According to a Workplace Bullying Institute U.S. survey, 30% of adult Americans have directly experienced abusive conduct at work. But what happens to the body when you absorb that unprovoked toxicity? It doesn't just hurt your feelings. It triggers chronic physiological stress. The body reacts as if it is under literal physical attack. Cortisol spikes. Some people experience rapid weight fluctuations of 10 to 15 pounds in a matter of weeks, simply from the ambient tension of their environment. The sheer metabolic exhaustion of being the target of someone else's invisible war is draining. It is exhausting, and it has to stop. When you are the quiet progressor in a hyper-competitive environment, your discipline does not just exist in a vacuum. It acts as a mirror. Picture a Thursday afternoon. You finish the presentation you spent the entire weekend building. A colleague immediately dismisses it, rolling their eyes, subtly twisting the situation in front of the manager to make you look overly ambitious. Your jaw tightens. You notice the shift in the room, but you don't name it. It is objectively a lot of psychological gymnastics for a grown adult to perform just to avoid doing their own job. It's pathetic, but it's real. Workplace hostility is, unfortunately, the expected background noise of ambition. The most effective response is not emotional retaliation, and it certainly isn't shrinking yourself. It is undeniable proof of skill. It is hard evidence of competence. We shrink because, somewhere along the line, we decided that being palatable was the only version of ourselves worth keeping. We locked the door on our potential just to ensure the people around us wouldn't feel threatened by our progress. But what the evidence seems to indicate is that you do not trigger their anger. You trigger their grief over their own wasted potential. When they look at your progress, they are forced to look at their own procrastination. They don't hate you. They hate the reflection of their own laziness that you force them to see. And this changes how you must define yourself. You are not a victim of their malice. You are the catalyst of their self-realization. You didn't protect yourself from being targeted by staying quiet. You protected the story that says you are only safe when invisible. And the tragedy is, it doesn't even work. While reviewing research on human behavior, a specific definition caught my attention. Dr. W. Gerrod Parrott, who studies emotions at Georgetown University, frames this through the lens of malicious envy. Benign envy is what happens when someone sees your success and is inspired to work harder. Malicious envy, however, is a toxic coping mechanism. They twist the situation to make it seem unfair. They want to pull you down to their level, because climbing up to yours requires too much effort. They cannot elevate their own reality, so they try to dismantle yours. And this scales. It finds a perfect, consequence-free environment online. We live in an era fueled by main character syndrome, where social media creates incredibly fragile egos. When someone else's natural competence steals the spotlight, that fragile ego shatters. For creators navigating the highly competitive, AI-driven future of platforms like YouTube, understanding this is a necessary survival skill. When a troll leaves a toxic comment, psychology calls this a narcissistic injury. For internet trolls and keyboard warriors, this manifests as a kind of parasocial projection. They use screens to safely scream at their own shadow selves. It is much easier to leave a nasty comment on a stranger's video than it is to fix their own broken life. While exploring the APA Dictionary of Psychology, Another concept stood out that perfectly explains this dynamic: psychological projection. It is an ego defense mechanism. It occurs when a person is so conflicted over their own inadequacy that they cannot process it. So they take the hated parts of themselves, their laziness, their fear, their procrastination, and they violently hurl them onto you. They change "I hate myself for failing" into "I hate them for succeeding." Dr. Joe Vaccaro notes that this jealousy projection often results in the envious person accusing you of being overly competitive. Carl Jung once wrote that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Dr. Kelsey M. Latimer points out that projection reflects the thoughts and feelings of the projector, not the actions of the target. Understanding their broken psychology isn't about forgiving them or even feeling sorry for them. It is a highly strategic tool. When you see the situation from their deeply insecure perspective, you stabilize your own environment. You avoid unnecessary tension because you stop taking their bait. You protect your own peace. You are not their enemy. You are merely a blank canvas for their misery. We have been taught that a hateful comment or a deliberate act of social sabotage is an attack, a weapon we have to defend against. But in my experience, unprovoked hate functions less like an insult and more like a confession. Every time they try to tear you down, they are publicly admitting, "I cannot compete with you on a level playing field." Your existence is so intimidating to their fragile ego that their only survival tactic is to try and break your focus. Their hatred is just a twisted badge of honor. It is proof that they recognize they are not on your level. Envy from others can be interpreted as a massive confidence booster. The goal is not just to maintain your confidence, but to use their envy as fuel to develop and perform even better. Stop apologizing. Stop shrinking. This dynamic was built by their insecurities. It was shaped by a culture that rewards performance but breeds intense, quiet resentment. The Society for Human Resource Management estimates that workplace hostility and envy cost U.S. employers roughly $223 billion in turnover over a 5-year period. You didn't choose to be their target. That was the environment. But the pattern is maintained when you internalize their projection. You are the only one in a position to decide how much of this you absorb. You cannot dismantle their fragile ego, but you can absolutely refuse to be the mirror they break. If there is someone in your life that this describes, not you specifically, but someone else, you can send this to them without an explanation. They will know. You will probably face this again tomorrow, not because you don't understand the mechanism now, but because understanding their fragility doesn't instantly change their behavior. The mechanism is still running. And I keep wondering, what would it feel like specifically to walk into that room, feel the temperature drop, and offer absolutely nothing in return? You know the version of yourself this is about. Let them watch.